Kam Johal Show. So we're back in the studio this week after our travels last week with my good friend Atul Lakhani, which was a show that a lot of you expressed expressions about that you really enjoyed because we were out on location. We've obviously been restricted because of COVID from going out on location as much as we'd like, but we will be bringing you those kind of shows again. And there's a few locations that we have in our minds. So this week's been the talk of Meghan and Harry and that show on Oprah. And I was just thinking that they're very much like an Indian family. So the girl's from Canada and America, and now she's got married and taken the boy over. I think the Queen was really upset. So usual stuff, and it just shows that even the richest people in the world have problems. So I had a bit of a chuckle and thought that they're no different to the rest of the world. So anyway, on to more serious matters, what we really want to talk about. So we've been bringing you guests over the last 6 months who I believe are real role models within our community, and they can show the light to some of us what we're doing and the great contributions that these people are making. And today my guest is no different. He's Dr. Sanjeev Nachani, OBE. So he's a full-time doctor. I'm not going to say too much because I want Sanjeev to share his own story with you. And again, due to COVID, we've been trying to do this show for a number of months now. And then finally, we gave up the idea of going out on location. So Sanjeev will be joining us via a video link. And I know that there's sometimes a slight delay and the words and the way I'm moving don't quite match up. But unfortunately, technology is such that we can't really control that. So we'll try and do the best of it. So please bear with us. So Sanjeev, for the last 13, 14 years, has run a charity called Healing Little Hearts. Very, very important charity, supported by some very, very influential individuals, as you'll hear. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Sanjeev Nachani to the show. Sanjeev, welcome.
Thank you very much, Cam. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, likewise. The interesting thing is that we live around the corner from each other, and we meet on screen today. Are you well?
Oh, shit.
Sanjeev, can you hear me? So, as I said, technical problems. We'll get back as soon as we possibly can.
I can hear you now.
Okay, fabulous. So, Sanjeev, where does the story begin? Because, you know, you've got a huge career behind you. So, and one of the things that we like to share with our viewers is the journeys that we've had, because not all of us are born in this country. Some of us came over when we were very, very young. What about yourself? Where does your family originate from?
I'm a Bombay boy, a very proud Bombay boy. I left Bombay about 33 years ago. I was just calculating today, to get training in the care of critically ill children.
Okay.
London, trained at Great Ormond Street Hospital. And after my training in Great Ormond Street Hospital, I wanted to do some further training, and I went on a fellowship to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. However, I'm an Anglophile. Clearly, I've been here 33 years, and the amazing lifestyle of Los Angeles didn't tempt me, and I wanted to come back to Britain, to the UK. And there was a really good job opportunity to start a brand new service, a brand new unit for critically ill children here in Leicester. And I thought that would be the perfect challenge that I needed. So having spent 2.5 years in Los Angeles, 6 years in London before that, I came to Leicester to take up a new consultant post to start a new service for critically ill children in 1996. And I've been here ever since.
Wow. So Leicester's definitely home now, right?
Leicester's definitely home. And I still can't live down when I tell people I moved from Los Angeles to Leicester. They look at me like I need to get my head examined, but actually, I think I'm sure I made the right decision. I absolutely love living here. Leicester's definitely home now. As you know, Cam, we are fortunate to live in a great community in our neighborhood, but also I think Leicester is a superb city to live in.
I 100% agree with you. Having worked and lived in Dubai for 10 years and various other parts of the world. And of course, those that joke about you not living in LA obviously haven't been there and experienced the smog of the place, have they?
And the traffic, oh my God, it's car city. It's absolutely awful. I used to have to travel an hour and a half to work each way, and I was on my knees by the end of the week. Stop, start,
Mm.
stop, start. Oh, it was terrible.
Definitely. I have a dear friend of mine, and if he's listening, Bahadur, who commutes from Modesto to San Francisco most mornings and leaves
Wow.
home about 4 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, dreadful. But look, LA's loss is Leicester's and the UK's gain, because your contribution has been incredible at the local hospitals. And as you say, we live in a wonderful community in Leicester. And Leicester itself is a great city and a real melting pot of multicultures and great race relations. It's a model city. And I've hosted people from other parts of the world who want to see how Leicester actually manages. So, lots of things that we can be proud of that particular city, as other cities around this country. So, tell us about the work that you do at the Leicester Hospitals, Sanjeev.
Yeah, so I work in the Leicester Children's Hospital, as well as the what's called the East Midlands Congenital Heart Unit, which is effectively the Leicester Children's Heart Unit. Now, famous or infamous, depends on how you want to look at it. Famous for having fought off two government attempts to shut us down. And they couldn't shut us down because of the amazing staff who work there, who provide very high quality care to the patients, to the children, and the families we look after. So I work at the Children's Heart Unit at the Glenfield Hospital, which is now, thanks to the great British public, particularly the Leicestershire and East Midlands public, moving to the Leicester Royal Infirmary in May. And I also work at the Leicester Children's Hospital, and I'm the senior most consultant in the two units where we look after critically ill children. Children who come with a pneumonia, a bad meningitis, a bad chest infection, who need ventilation. Ventilation is obviously very well known to everybody now because of COVID. And also in the Children's Heart Unit in the ICU, where we look after children after heart surgery. So I work in that unit. I'm the senior most consultant there. And I got the two units together and functioning after a bit of a difficult start when I joined in 1996.
That's wonderful. How many children at any time that you guys look after in Leicester?
So in the intensive care units, I'll give you an average per year to start off with. We look after about 900 critically ill children. In any average week, there'll be about 10 to 14 children requiring intensive care each and every day. So the numbers actually between the two intensive care units is about 900 children per year. We are one of the busiest centers in the country, having started from nothing. So it is extremely gratifying that we've been able to create this service, because Leicester was the outlier amongst all the big cities, Nottingham, Birmingham, Sheffield, Stoke, etc. We didn't have a service. And I came here, I was fortunate to start this service, and now we're one of the busiest in the country.
Yes, because children do come to you from all over the UK, don't they?
They do. They come to us from all over the East Midlands, also from part of the West Midlands. But we have this specialist service, which was started here in Leicester, not by me, by an eminent colleague of mine. It's called ECMO. This is a very sophisticated heart-lung machine that literally rescues babies, children, teenagers, and of course adults when their heart and lungs have stopped working. We're the preeminent center in the world, and the center in the UK, with the center of excellence in the UK, that was started here. So we get children from all over the UK, in fact, from as far afield as Ireland and Sweden. This particular specialty, ECMO, we are a world-renowned center.
So tell me something, you've built up this amazing expertise and a great team doing, incredible work. Why on earth would the government want to shut all that down?
Politics, ego, megalomania, you take your pick. Um, it was basically that somebody who had the ear of powerful people in London sitting in their ivory towers decided that they wanted to create a mega center in Birmingham, which would sort of rival the excellence in London. And the only way they could create a mega center in Birmingham would be if they took all the work from Leicester. And that was the basic premise on which this would work. But of course, when you are faced, when a proposition like that comes up against the sheer quality and dedication of staff, which is amply and vividly demonstrated and has been for many years now, they lost. The government, the health secretary, after a huge public outcry and a lot of evidence that we submitted about the quality of our service, referred it to an independent review body. And they, for the first time in their history, actually overturned a decision that NHS England had made, which is incredible and historic for us.
Yeah, wonderful. I remember the uproar from the public in Leicester, and I suppose that's what we need. We need people in our communities to participate in things that they want to get done, and it shows, as you said, it's the first time a decision like that's ever been overturned, and to credit to both the teams that were there and the expertise and the reputation of the hospital, and then the general public that absolutely cried out for this not to happen, and it worked, didn't it?
It worked. They didn't let it happen. They tried it again a few years later under a different guise with the same motive. And at that time, we had an amazing chief executive, John Adler, who basically told NHS England, I'll put it politely, that no, we have a very high-class service. You're not going to shut us down. And he didn't let them shut us down. We carried on delivering the work despite all this pressure. So once again, it's great, amazing. It's a testimony to the doctors and nurses who work there day in and day out, 24 hours a day, providing high quality care, that despite this pressure, they carried on providing and performing and giving the best results for these children and their families. And once again, they just couldn't shut us down.
Fantastic. So the work was just too good and the results were too good and the support from the public was immense, which is incredible. Sanjeev, how have you and your team coped during this pandemic? Obviously, we've been in this situation for about a year now. How has morale been? How has your staff? And generally, we read lots of things about the National Health Service and the stress that you guys have been under. How's that been for you?
It's been very difficult. So the first wave fortunately wasn't as bad as feared. We had to give up our children's heart units for the adult COVID effort. But fortunately, the first wave wasn't as bad as we feared. The only slight silver lining on the first wave and subsequently was that while sadly and tragically the toll on adults has been absolutely horrendous, children didn't get affected so much. So fortunately, we didn't see as much illness in children as we saw in adults. That was the only sort of silver lining. The second wave, however, the reason for which we are still under lockdown was absolutely devastating. Predominantly for adults this time, the numbers skyrocketed, pretty much doubled what we saw in the first wave. Once again, we had to give over the children's heart unit to the adult COVID effort. Doctors and nurses from all specialties, not just adult caring specialties, have worked extremely hard, gone way above and beyond, and have provided exemplary treatment, shown incredible dedication, and worked under duress, under a lot of pressure in a very, very difficult situation, despite fatigue, despite the fact that they lost a lot of adults with COVID, just carried on and carried on. So once again, it's testimony to an incredibly dedicated workforce, not just in Leicester, but across the UK.
Absolutely incredible. Where do you see us in terms of lockdowns being eased now? Kids are back at school, and hopefully finally, it seems like the government have got some kind of handle on easing us out of these lockdowns. Do you think that the program's working, and how do you see things coming to fruition in the next few months?
Yeah, I think the program's working. I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. The vaccine program is accelerating rapidly, and in fact, today, Radio 4, they were talking about increasing capacity to 3 to 4 million vaccines per week very shortly. The target to vaccinate everybody in the UK has been potentially moved forward from the third week of July to the end of June, which is really good news. The numbers of adults presenting critically ill to hospital has dropped dramatically. There's still a fairly high number of patients per day, about 6,000. That's still a bit uncomfortable, but I think we're getting towards opening up. And I think the government's approach is very sensible. Do things in stages and constantly reevaluate every 4 to 5 weeks. I think the process and the procedure they've adopted this time is really good.
Yeah, they finally seem to have got a handle on things. I don't know the answer to this, so I'll ask: is the intention to vaccinate the whole of our population, or does it stop at some age group when the government's happy and they think that beyond a certain point, there's no point in vaccinating people of a certain age?
I think most of the population down to the age of around 18. They're doing a study on children because fortunately children are low risk. However, there's this age group between around adolescents, which can still can be transmitters. Fortunately, they don't get seriously ill, but they can transmit the disease. Primary school children don't transmit the disease as much and don't fall as ill, but it's the adolescents which are still at a bit of a risk, not in normal children, but if they are underlying conditions. However, they can transmit the disease. So I think they're going to look at that group. But in the absence of studies, they probably will stop vaccinating around 18 and then wait for the data from children and then decide whether to vaccinate absolutely everybody from birth to older age.
Okay, so it's going well. So we hope it continues. A few weeks ago, we had a program because it was pointed out that the BAME community were less likely to have the vaccinations. From everything that I see and read, the conspiracy theorists seems, thank God, have disappeared, and the vaccination program is going well. Is there any evidence still that people of the Asian community are less likely to have the vaccine than the host community?
I think the early concern that the uptake wasn't as good as it should be is no longer the case. A lot of people, particularly in GP surgeries, etc., are going way above and beyond and calling. There was an article in the Times this Sunday, Professor Faruqi doing a stellar job, but by calling his patients who are uncertain or apprehensive and explaining them the risks and the benefits, or benefits and the risks of this vaccination. So I think the message is finally getting there. And I think the numbers have gone up and are no longer as much of a concern as they were. So that's very positive.
That's great news, isn't it? So, what the good doctor is saying is that the Saudi community, the very concerns, they're disappearing. And what's actually happening is that we are now going and getting ourselves vaccinations. So those numbers are going up. So I think that the difference was about 20-25%. Apne host community, they were more likely to have the vaccinations. But from what Sanjeev says, thank God that's changing, and doctors, particularly in the Asian community, are ringing up their clients and saying, look, it's safe, and trying to convince those people to come in, especially the older generation who are very, very much more vulnerable. So that's great news from how that's happening. So finally on COVID, Sanjeev, my feeling is that at some point we will end up with some sort of travel passports. Especially if we want to travel far and wide. Do you have the same thoughts, and what are your thoughts about that situation happening sometimes, probably late summer, that we end up being asked to prove that we've been vaccinated if we want to travel around the world?
I think it will happen. I think it's very sensible. I think there's a huge clamor already. A lot of European countries love our business, as you know very well, and they're already talking about it. This green pass in the EU. I think the clamor from the public will be very loud because ultimately we've been under house arrest for over a year now, and everybody wants to enjoy their freedom rightly. Brits traditionally love holidays, so I don't think this can be stopped. It's already gathering a momentum, and it will happen. I'm fairly certain it'll happen. It has to happen. Yes.
Well, again, last week's show, I said that we'll be able to get our dancing shoes out and be able to go to some weddings finally this year. So your colleagues on LinkedIn have been clamoring for me to ask you about the dancing doctor and how well you move. So I witnessed that myself. So I did know about this a few years ago. I believe it was at the Bentley showroom. You guys did a charity fundraiser, which you have been involved in very, very widely. So tell us about the prize and the money that you raised when you did the Bhangra competition.
So the Bhangra competition was UHL's Got Talent, University Hospitals of Leicester's Got Talent competition amongst the 16,000 employees between the three hospitals in the University Hospitals of Leicester, which was set up by the charity manager. And the first year, I think, was at the Jungle Club, and my dear friend Nikki Dosanjh, who was a general practitioner, he was working in the Children's Hospital at the time and helped us form a team. I was a senior citizen on the team, but I absolutely loved dancing, so I was game for it. We actually had intense practice for 3 or 4 months before the competition. We would meet in the evenings in the physio gym, and Nikki would choreograph what we were doing, teach us dance steps, etc. And to our great delight, we beat all the other competition in open and fair competition, and won the title of UHL's Got Talent the first time round. And we re-entered the following year, once again a rigorous training program supervised by Nikki, and won again. We won £20,000 for the Children's Hospital. That was a prize, which is actually for an NHS competition a substantial amount of money, which was given to the Children's Hospital for T-shirts and that sort of thing. And I retired as reigning champion, so I'm very proud of that, actually.
That's fantastic. So Nikki would be Gurneek, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so there you go, Gurneek Baji. I've asked the question and the good doctors answered it. So, but you kept the fact that you were the team captain very, very well hidden. So, but look, great effort, right? £20,000, a lot of money. And obviously you had a lot of fun doing that. So moving on now, your real sort of, piece in terms of your passion in life outside of the wonderful work you do is Healing Little Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that. Take us that through. It's a wonderful organization. Everybody in Leicester knows about it, and I'm sure the wider community does. And if you don't, you can look them up. But we're gonna talk about that now. So please, over to you. When did you start it, and what was the motivation behind it, and what does it do?
Yes, you're right. This is my passion, a huge passion of mine. So I think we have to rewind very quickly back to my Bombay roots. I grew up in Bombay and I trained in Bombay. And the reason I left Bombay to come to the West was, as I said very briefly, that the doctors and nurses didn't know how to look after critically ill children presenting to casualty. But what was even worse was, or as bad, was they had even less knowledge or ability, not their fault, but less knowledge and training in the skill and the art and the science of looking after children with heart defects. There was absolutely no training at that time. So we're talking about the mid-80s to the late 80s. Nobody knew what to do if a child who was born with a heart problem came to the hospital, and tragically they would die. And I saw this, and I saw the helplessness in my seniors, in my registrars, and my consultants, and I thought I need to do something about this and go away and learn how to look after these children. Even if a child was fortunate to get heart surgery, if there was one surgeon who was brave enough to take the child on, after the aftercare that I now specialize in, nobody knew what to do. So for all these reasons, I left to come to the UK for training. And I mentioned setting up the Leicester Hospital Intensive Care Unit and uniting it with the Children's Heart Unit, etc. So things before the government tried to shut us down, which was 2009, 2010, things were going really well. We were amongst the most prolific services in the country. Everything was going fine. And I was starting to get a bit restless. I was starting to think about legacy, giving something back, making a difference, all of that. And straight away, the idea came to me that I knew what it was a light bulb moment. I thought, I know there's a huge paucity, a lack of expertise, particularly for children needing heart surgery. What I will do is I will take a team of volunteer teams of doctors and nurses to a hospital in Bombay, offer our services for free so we can go and operate on children. So I picked up the phone when I was in Bombay visiting family, and I picked up the phone to one of the hospitals. It was called Hinduja Hospital, which is run by the family who live here and based in the UK. And I said, this is who I am. This is what I can do. I can bring a team. We can operate on your children for free. And straight away they said yes. And that was basically the start of Healing Little Hearts. And we went on our first trip, which was a roaring success. The charity was named by two of the nurses who accompanied us. It wasn't named by me. It was named by two of the nurses. But I fell in love with the name because it says so much. Healing Little Hearts, give a child a new life. So that's when Healing Little Hearts was born. And then inevitably there was a bit of a setback, and politics in the local hospital, they didn't want us back. For the surgeon, the local surgeon was threatened by our expertise. Surprise, surprise. So then it took me 18 months to find another home. And essentially, we started properly in 2009. And I kept going back to Bombay 3 or 4 times a year, started slowly. And what we do is we take volunteer teams of doctors and nurses. We go to a particular hospital that partners with us, and we operate on children with heart problems, babies, children, teenagers, for a week at a time. And during the week, we operate on roughly 12 to 15 children per week. Initially, we went 3 or 4 times to build up the model, to get some success under our belt, to show people we can actually deliver this. And roughly around 2014, which is 5 years later, having looked back on our results, very confident with our expertise and very confident in the model, I then started rolling this out. Since then, the charity has skyrocketed in activity. We are the busiest children's heart unit in the UK. We are one of the busiest children's heart units in the world, because in 2019 we undertook 24 international heart camps. In 2018 we did 23. In 2017 we did 18. So overall, since we started, which is started properly in 2009, we've undertaken 151 international heart missions, operated on 2009 children, worked with 40 hospitals in 12 countries. So we are now proliferated around the world. A big focus of mine is Africa, because India is improving in its ability to look after children. A big focus of mine is Africa. And essentially we'll go anywhere in the developing world that needs our help within 24 hours traveling time. Healing Little Hearts, it might have been my idea. Yes, it was my idea, but actually the only reason it runs and is so successful is because of the amazing dedication of the trustees, the committee, and the volunteers who actually take annual leave. I myself take 3 or 4 weeks annual leave every year. Other volunteers take 2 or 3 weeks annual leave every year to go abroad, to go to the poorest countries of the world, and to provide heart surgery on babies, children, and teenagers for free. The great British public have been absolutely incredible in supporting us. They've really bought into our vision. When I give them statistics of 1 million children dying from untreated heart disease in the 21st century, they're just completely gobsmacked. And they say, right, here, this is our support. Go and operate on these children. Go and save these lives. And that is what has allowed us to thrive. And out of every pound that the great British public give us, 97p goes towards treating these children. I think I'll stop there and take a breath.
That's incredible, isn't it? Do you know what the average is for charities collecting in this country as to what actually ends up treating or helping the people that they set out to help?
I don't, but because we do everything pro bono, other charity organizations have salaries to pay, staff, etc., etc. So I'm not going to say anything about other charities. I'll just share what we do.
I just wanted to highlight because, the great British public, and that includes all the Asian communities, are great givers. And I just want everybody to be conscious of who they are giving their money to, because without naming names, and that's not what we're here for, the fact is that there are charities that are run just like businesses where the chief executive is on a salary commensurate with that of a CEO of a privately run firm, and all the benefits that go with that go to those people, their offices, their staff. So the final figure of the money that you donate that actually ends up in the hands of those that you donate it for is quite a small percentage. So, Sanjeev talked about this. 97 pence in the pound that you donate actually is spent on doing the work that you want being done in your name. Now, we had Ravi Singh from Khalsa Aid on a few months ago, and he talked of the same kind of things, that, charities are run like businesses, which I totally disagree with. It's not a job. You're running a charity, so the benefits of the people that are donating should go to the end user, which is why you're gathering the money. And I sometimes wonder why there's not a bigger dent that we can make. Well, the bigger dent that we don't make is the fact that so much of the money is sucked up in overheads and salaries and things of people that purport to be, charitable individuals. But here we are, we're talking to the good doctor, and this is what he's telling you, that 97 pence in every pound that you donate goes to actually helping children who would otherwise not be living today. So just research who you're giving money to. Just because somebody puts their hand out, don't just give money. It makes you feel good at the time, but actually, your money could be better spent elsewhere. So that's just my little bit of soapbox. I'll get off that and we'll continue with our interview. So, Sanjeev, where's the future for Healing Little Hearts? How big do you hope to get it? Can it, rival some of the bigger charities? Is that the ambition for it? How many countries would you like to be in?
Very good question, Cam. I'm not into rivaling charities. I'm into carrying on at the current pace. First of all, 20 to 25 camps a year, which will still make us, which will carry on making us one of the busiest children's heart charities in the world. A lot of people have asked me, why don't you try to build a heart center? Now, in theory, that's an incredible idea. In theory, I'd love to do that. But the problem is, as you know, as your listeners know, you're then hostage to fortune. Because if you give somebody money in India or Africa, you are completely reliant on them to deliver for the money that you have given them, the money that you have been entrusted. And I can't take that responsibility because I'm not controlling what's happening at the coalface. So therefore, whilst it's a very cool idea, in reality, it doesn't really work, because I don't want sleepless nights wondering if the person I've given the money to is actually either efficiently using the money or not usurping the money, etc., etc. But what we do is we partner with hospitals who've got the basic infrastructure, who've got the ambition, who have decided that they want to become children's heart centers. And we go there 3 or 4 times a year. And every time we go there, we upskill them. And there are 2 centers in India that we have now made independent. So I want to do more of that. Make centers independent, empower them, train them. So in the fullness of time, which is about 3 or 5 years per hospital, we can walk away and they can carry on operating on children without our help. So the 2 hospitals that we have empowered and trained, they're now operating on 500 or 600 children per year themselves, having done no children previously. So that is what I want to carry on doing. In terms of where we'd like to go, well, anywhere within 24 hours or so traveling distance. So for instance, we have been negotiating with Nicaragua, and we've had an invitation from Nicaragua which is in Central America, to go. It's an impoverished nation, so we are keen to go there, and we are in the midst of negotiations about timings, etc. So essentially, we will go anywhere where the need is, and where we can be assured that the local team wants to build a heart service. And in addition to that, I want to look at other things. For instance, I'm looking at cheap and effective, affordable breathing machines. I'm coordinating with a local organization here based at the Loughborough University, and also a different person based at the University of Leicester, to build breathing machines which don't cost an arm and leg, that can be sent to the lower and middle income countries. Because there was, once again, interestingly, an article in the Times yesterday. There's a doctor in Australia who was working with the Bill Clinton Foundation, who's trying to, and just get this for your listeners, trying to get oxygen available to hospitals in Africa, which therefore means that actually oxygen isn't universally available, which is why there are millions of children dying because of lack of oxygen. So the next step from that journey would be, okay, they've got oxygen, now we need to get them affordable breathing machines. When I say affordable, I'm talking about £500 or £1,500. A breathing machine normally costs £30,000. So who can afford that in Africa? It's impossible. So get these sorts of initiatives, these sorts of machines to the small hospital in the small town in Asia, in Africa, in Central America, along with our endeavor to train these doctors and nurses how to look after children after heart surgery. And also to pay for different teams. While Healing Little Hearts focuses on the heart, there are so many other surgical conditions that we can help treat with, like cleft palates, like problems in the food pipe, in the stomach, etc., etc. So I want to expand the reach of Healing Little Hearts to heal children in their entirety.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. How big, Sanjeev, is your management team at Healing Little Hearts?
So we have 10 incredible committee members, really dedicated, really hardworking, really committed, and we have 4 trustees, and we have quite a few volunteers. So we have 200 volunteer doctors and nurses, and that number increases progressively and steadily. And we have people. It's amazing. We have. I did a presentation to the European Parliament. I was really lucky to go to the European Parliament before Brexit in March 19, and I did a presentation to MEPs, and I demonstrated to them that out of the 27 EU countries, 15 EU countries send volunteers with Healing Little Hearts to different parts of the world. We have people from Australia traveling to India. We have people from India traveling to Nigeria. We have people from Pakistan who travel to Nigeria to volunteer with Healing Little Hearts. So this is what I call a United Nations effort. We have people from the US traveling to Africa to volunteer and provide heart surgery for children.
How incredible. Sanjeev, in terms of volunteers, obviously you need medically qualified staff, but can lay people come, and is there any work or any things that you need in terms of everyday folk who are not necessarily medically qualified, that can they volunteer?
That's a really good question. So not at the coalface, not on the front line. However, because we get this asked this question a lot, what I say and what I request of these people who are interested is help raise the profile of what Healing Little Hearts does. So one statistic that I'll repeat and explain the reason for that. So every year in the 21st century, when we have just seen 2 probes land on Mars, there are 1 billion children dying from untreated heart disease. 1 million. So that is double the number of people dying from malaria every year. The problem is nobody knows about this. And any volunteer who approaches us, I say, please help us raise the profile of this absolutely enormous global child health scandal, that there are 1 million children dying from untreated heart disease. Help us raise the profile of that, and help us raise the profile of what Healing Little Hearts does to help with this problem. That then translates into more people supporting us and allows us to do more things, not just with healing hearts, but as I said, consider building affordable breathing machines, consider sending surgeons to operate on other conditions that affect the child and that are very common, but still the children die from.
Incredible. So 1 million children a year, and that's just from one situation in terms of heart disease, right? So there's obviously multiple illnesses, multiple diseases that children are dying from. And as you said, you know, it's a problem that's largely ignored because is it a problem that really afflicts, the poorer nations more so, I would have thought? Would that be true?
Yes, and there are many reasons for that. Yes, it does affect the poorest countries. And whilst the affluence has increased in affordability, affluence has increased in Africa and Asia, the government sectors in India is a classic example. We spend what 8 or 9% of our GDP on healthcare in this country, and we lag behind other countries. Africa is a fraction of that. India is a fraction of that, and that's the problem. If you spend such a tiny amount of your GDP on healthcare, you then don't have money to invest in what are relatively high-tech procedures like heart surgery, because you're not dealing with the basics. So
Of
it's not a
course.
priority. It's a hidden tragedy. And parents are sadly, tragically very fatalistic about this. Oh, okay, God has willed that we have this child with this problem. Hopefully we'll have other children who don't have these problems. And that still happens. It's still prevalent. So there's a whole host of reasons that this goes on. But yes, 1 million children dying just from untreated heart problems.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Well, look, hopefully we've moved this thing along. Our audience is incredibly generous, and Sanjeev. So if people want to donate and help Healing Little Hearts, where do they do that? How can that happen?
So yeah, we've got a website, www.healinglittlehearts.org, and we have an email address that we'd welcome people to contact us on, info@healinglittlehearts.org.uk. And I said, volunteering with us can be helping at events, can be coming up with ideas, do a skydive, do a marathon, do a half marathon, raising money for Healing Little Hearts. But alongside that, given the power, the influence of social media, it's telling people what you're raising money for. So people will look at what we do, look at the statistics, the reason for what we do, our raison d'etre, and say, wow, this needs attention. This needs to be highlighted in the public conscience. So over time, we can start dealing with this massive hidden tragedy.
Incredible. Sanjeev, unfortunately, time waits for no one, and we are once again towards the end of the show. Just wanted to thank you so much for that, for sharing, the incredible work that you do. We're so indebted to people like yourselves, people on your team, your trustees, those that have supported you throughout this journey and continue to do so. So as the pandemic ends, obviously we'll be able to have more fundraising activities. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Anything in closing that you'd like to say to our audience?
No, I just once again thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting us. And a pledge that I will carry on along with my incredible team, volunteers, trustees, committee members, carry on doing what we promised we will do. We will use all your resources, all your donations to save lives. That's what we will do to the best of our ability.
Thank you so much
My pleasure.
for appearing. I know you're so busy. So, guys, there we have it, an amazing individual doing incredible work. And, we promise to bring you these stories time and time again. So if you're sitting on your sofa now, 17, 18, you're on social media all the time, contact the organization, do whatever it is that you want to do, have some fun with it. If you're good at baking cakes, bake some cakes and sell them, because these organizations are set up by everyday people just like us. Sanjeev lives down the road from me, is a great individual, but he's a family man. So these are ordinary people doing extraordinary work and they need help. lots of these smaller charities are not funded as well as the main charities, so they don't often get government funding. All the money that they get is comes from volunteers and people just like you and I donating. So, and again, look at the money that you're donating and donate to a charity that you really know is making a difference. I'm not recommending anybody, and I'm not saying that there's somebody that you shouldn't donate to, but just think about it, because giving is part of our lives. That's what we do because we're good individuals. But give to a charity that is something that you really resonate with. And I can't say to you where you should do that, but please do. But as Sanjeev said, you're on social media, get in touch with Healing Little Hearts, put up some posts, tell people what you're doing, raise money for them on your birthdays, etc. We all have too many things that we really don't need, so go out there and do that. So end of another show. So next week we're going to have a phone in. So please, 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 whatever you want to talk to me about and ask questions, it'd be your opportunity. That would be me in the hot seat and you guys asking me any questions that you want to about what's going on in the business community, anything that our guests have discussed with you and future guests. So, if you're interested in coming on the show, please contact me. And if you want me to bring somebody to the show that you would think really could benefit from their knowledge and from what they have to say, we're quite welcome to ideas. At the end of the day, the show is yours and it wouldn't work without our audiences. So I want to thank you once again, and I will see you 7 o'clock next week on Thursday with a phone-in show. And get your phone calls in early, because we only deal with a number, obviously, that we can get through. As you know, we don't rush you at all. So we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for watching tonight. Take care. And